The 2023 Mariners have a secret weapon on their hands with Chris Flexen. And that is simply because Chris Flexen gives the Mariners depth that they didn't have before. A starting pitcher of major league quality that is on the team in the bullpen and can start at any given time. But also, with that being said, he is also a good trade candidate for the Mariners, and them holding on to him throughout the offseason was honestly really smart. As teams go throughout spring training, you always hate to see injuries. Before the season even starts, there are some guys like Gavin Lux whose season is already over. For the Mariners, of course, barring their own injury, this is a pretty big deal. With Chris Flexen, you have the opportunity to trade him to a desperate team that needs a starting pitcher. And the Mariners can afford to do something like that because they have such good quality starting pitching in the minor leagues that is basically MLB ready with Emerson Hancock and Bryce Miller. Of course, both of them probably need a little bit more time down in the minor leagues, but overall, we expect to see both of them at some point this year. Now, I know that everybody thinks the sky is falling because Marco Gonzalez had a bad start in spring training, whereas Chris Flexen had a really good start. I get it. I understand where you guys are coming from, but the value of Chris Flexen currently is in the depth that he gives the Mariners and his ability to be traded. You can't trade Marco's contract. Nobody's going to accept it. And it just so happens that as spring training goes along, a couple teams are now starting to face injuries in their starting rotation, and the Mariners could capitalize on that. I could think of 3 teams right now off the top of my head that have all had starting pitcher injuries, including the Yankees, the Padres, and the Rays. We know Frankie Montas might be out for the entire year. The Yankees have already said they're going to probably stay in-house for that. So with that being said, let's not worry about the Yankees. Meaning that leaves 2 teams, the Padres and the Rays. And here over on our Twitter, hey, are you following us on Twitter? Go follow us on Twitter at Mojo Mariner. But the Padres had unfortunate injury news. This is from Dennis Lynn, that Joe Musgrove fractured his big left toe in the weight room yesterday, according to the team. More info to come. We, being such good analysts, said, Chris Flexen, you are a San Diego Padre. Now, the news is that Joe Musgrove is going to at least miss a few weeks before he can start throwing again. They fully expect him to at least miss opening day. Now, we've also heard that the Padres may have been interested in Chris Flexen in the offseason, so what could the Padres send to the Mariners to make this deal work out? And then with the Rays, official word from the Rays on glass now, MRI showed grade 2 left oblique strain. His timeline to return to game action is 6 to 8 weeks. And then we said, Chris Flexen, you are a Tampa Bay Ray, because we're really funny. So what could the Rays offer the Mariners in exchange for Chris Flexen? Well, let's start with the Padres. The big thing that Chris Flexen is going to provide for the Mariners in 2023 is out of the bullpen. That's where he's going to see the most time. So while you're not going to get the world for Chris Flexen, if these teams start to get desperate, that's your best chance to trade Chris Flexen for something of a little bit more value to you. And for the Mariners, I don't really think they see any value in trading Chris Flexen for a lower level prospect. I have 2 guys on both teams I think the Mariners should take a look at, and do I think this is going to happen? Probably not. I don't think these teams are going to trade these players for Chris Flexen, but if they get desperate enough, maybe it's possible. First, and we've talked about this deal before, is Drew Pomeranz. Pomeranz is 34 years old with the San Diego Padres. Pomeranz missed the 2022 season, so it's tough to say how Pomeranz is going to be coming off of injury, but overall, Drew Pomeranz has been really good out of the bullpen for the Padres. In 2020, he had a 1.45 ERA. In 2021, he had a 1.75 in 20 games and 27 games, respectively. The one thing the Mariners are missing, in my opinion, is a lefty neutralizer out of the bullpen. Obviously, last year, they had guys like Ryan Borucki or Matthew Boyd, and they also had Eric Swanson, who had really good splits against lefties. As of this very moment, there is not a clear winner for that. Of course, one could emerge, just like Eric Swanson did, but as of right now, there is not a clear winner as to who would face a lefty pocket in the lineup. And Drew Pomeranz could definitely be that guy. And yeah, obviously the Padres don't really care about saving money, but if they do, Pomeranz is making 10 million, Chris Flexen is making 8 million, so you're saving yourself 2 million bucks. And yeah, like we were saying about a lefty neutralizer, in 2021, Pomeranz allowed just a 156 batting average versus left-handed hitters. Yeah, that'll play. Pomeranz is somebody that I would really like to see as a Mariner, even if he's not going to be on the team for very long. Of course, Chris Flexen is also on a 1-year deal, so it's not that big of a deal trading a 1-year deal for a 1-year deal. But if the Mariners could get a lefty neutralizer, I think that bullpen gets even better. Another left-handed pitcher I would really like to see the Mariners try and get is Jose Castillo. Are the Mariners going to try and collect all the Castillos in baseball? It's possible. Now, Castillo has just 39 games in the big leagues. In 2018, his last full season in the big leagues, he had a 3.29 ERA. He threw only one game in 2019, nothing in 2020 or 2021, and only one game in 2022. Jose Castillo has hardly thrown in the big leagues since 2018. So you may be asking yourself, Colton, what the heck are you talking about? Why would we want this guy? Well, Jose Castillo is somebody that the Padres see as a really big piece for them versus left-handed hitters, and a guy who is finally healthy for the first time in years. Reading through the article here for Jose Castillo, you can hear a little bit about his injury woes. He said in the final 2 months of his 2019 season, he had issues with a tendon in his left middle finger that kept him out the rest of that season. In 2020, Castillo dealt with back trouble. Of course, yeah, this is a shortened 2020 season, so there wasn't much of a chance for him to get back in. In 2021, he was shut down early in camp and underwent Tommy John surgery. And in this article, it's noted the Padres had designated Castillo for assignment, but they were thrilled when he opted to return on a minor league deal, knowing he could be a dominant left-handed weapon out of their pen when healthy. And based on the feel of this article, maybe Castillo wouldn't want to leave the Padres and maybe they don't want to trade him, but if they get desperate enough, there is a chance. With that being said, there is one small problem with trading a starting pitcher to the San Diego Padres. The San Diego Padres have every starting pitcher in the book. Just here on their depth chart, there are 11 pitchers mentioned here. Obviously, Darvish just signed a mega deal. Musgrove is the guy who's going to be hurt, but possibly only for a little bit. Then you have Snell, Martinez, Lugo, Waka, Knurr, Groom, Weathers, Honeywell, and Morejon. Honestly, if the Mariners could get Adrian Morejon, I'd be happy with that as well. But needless to say, the Padres have plenty of in-house options to deal with this injury. And that may be the case for as you can see for the Rays, they definitely have a lot less in terms of what they'd be working with, and the injury is more substantial. So maybe the Rays would be a better fit here. The Rays have 8 people listed on their depth chart for their rotation, and a lot of them have not really shown out too well in the majors. And if I'm being honest with you, I'd be thrilled to either get Fleming or Jeffrey Springs in this deal, but I don't think either of those are really that possible. Someone I do think could be possible though is Colby White. White is listed in the bottom third of the top 30 prospects for the Tampa Bay Rays. In 2021 in the minor leagues, White pitched for 4 different teams in the Rays organization, starting at A-ball, advancing all the way to AAA, where he pitched in 9 games with a 1.86 ERA. Overall, White has looked really good in the minor leagues and definitely is going to be a force in that bullpen if they decide to bring him up and use him as a weapon out of there. White is young and would have 6 years of control left. Would the Rays be willing to give up somebody like Colby White just for Chris Flexen? Probably not. Maybe they would also want like a Matt Festa in return or something like that. Maybe a Penn Murphy. I'm not sure. And at that point, is it really worth it? It's tough to say. And then there is Garrett Clevenger, who has been pitching out of the bullpen for the Tampa Bay Rays. He also went to college in Oregon, so maybe a little hometown bias there. Now, Clevenger has pitched for 3 teams in his big league career. He started in Philly in 2020, then he was with the Dodgers for 2021 and the beginning of 2022, and then he went over to the Rays at the end of 2022, had a 2.41 ERA with them. Overall, Clevenger has been good but not great. As you can see in Clevenger's career, he has a 3.67 ERA with 41.2 innings pitched, and yeah, he's just a guy, a left-handed guy out of the bullpen. And throughout his career, Clevenger has actually been better versus right-handed pitching than he has left-handed pitching, of course, in very minimal sample size, just 17 innings versus lefties and 24 versus righties. With Clevenger, they'd still be able to receive a few years of him. Instead of just 1 year of Chris Flexen, you'd be able to get, I think, 3 or 4 years with someone like Garrett Clevenger. But again, with all the starting pitching that they have, it's tough to say if they're going to want to stay in-house or if they're going to want to go outside the organization. Again, the Rays have a lot of people on their depth chart, but some of these guys do pitch out of the bullpen. The Rays deploy their rotation in such a strange way, sometimes having openers, so on and so forth. So needless to say, it's not 100% guaranteed that these guys are going to be in the starting rotation. I think it's safe to say that at least these 3 or 4 are going to be in the starting rotation. Of course, Glasnow is the one that's hurt, but the rest of them, you never know. Chris Flexen for the Mariners. Let me tell you, he has been such a revelation for this team and one of the best pickups that they have made out of the KBO. But with that being said, the Mariners' need for Chris Flexen is slowly dwindling, and while he is a great depth piece for them, he may even be a better trade chip. And in terms of depth, the Mariners have actually been adding players to their roster that give them a bit of a safety net in case Jared Kelenic isn't who we hope he could be. I have that video on the screen now. I want you guys to check that one out. I appreciate you guys watching this one, and go Mariners.